Mike Bloomberg has convened this event to call on business leaders to step up, if you will, and take action on issues where government is failing in some cases or incapable for other reasons. Where do you think investors belong in that conversation? Professional investors, investors like yourself and Oaktree.
Well, number one, Eric, when you say take action, we can't wrest the decision-making powers from the governments. Lots of us would like to contribute. There's an old saying about opinions that everybody's got one. And we have lots of opinions. Most of us would be glad to contribute our opinions if we thought we could have an impact. When President Trump came into office as a pro-business president, he assembled a number of business forums to help him. Given the events of the last month or two, they've all been disbanded, but I'm not sure that even before that they had much of a voice. But I think that the business people I know would be more than glad to help.
Investing is a discipline.
Yes.
Running a business requires discipline.
Yes.
It's always a challenge, don't you think, for business people or investors for that matter, to contemplate the biggest challenges that we face, whether they be climate change or national security, and figure out what role they can play so long as that role contemplates something other than the bottom line. In other words, if you focus on the bottom line, in some respects you know you can't do wrong. The minute you think about other things, do you run too many risks?
Well, I think that we all focus on the bottom line when we're in the office. I think when we're outside the office, we're good at bringing in other considerations. We even do it in the office. Nobody I know runs their business only to make the most money. So there are conflicts, but any intelligent adult has the responsibility of acquitting them.
One of the biggest challenges governments in this country face is the pension problem. Whether it's at a national level with Social Security or at a state and municipal level with public pension plans. These are your clients.
Yes.
What do you think it would take to fix the $2 trillion plus underfunding problem, for example? Or the fact that many of these plans simply don't earn the necessary rate of return to meet their long-term obligations?
Well, higher rates of return would help a lot, and higher interest rates eventually would bring that about. That's one of the big causes. When the return on treasuries went from 6 to 2, the unfunded benefits exploded upward. But beyond that, I think that, you look at Social Security. There are only a few moving pieces. The age you retire, how long you get benefits, how big the benefits are, how much you contribute, whether there's a limit on the amount that's taxed, et cetera, whether there's a means test. Some or all of these have to change. That's the only thing we know for sure. And because this is just math, and if nothing changes, the system is going to go bankrupt. And so people get elected by promising to preserve your Social Security benefit, but then nothing happens. And people have been talking about this problem for many years, and nothing happens. Not only do decisions not get made and action taken, you don't even hear any discussion.
One step American states might consider, for example, is following what the Canadians and the Australians did, which is to create professional investors and the likes of Ontario Teachers or the Australian Superannuation or the New Zealand Superannuation Fund, for example. Do you think that would fix the problem?
Well, not fix, but I think it would contribute. Obviously, quality decisions would be one of the important ingredients in a solution. I believe that it's fair to say that and one thing you left out of your equation is that when they hire the staff for these investment organizations, they pay them, I believe, salaries that are competitive with the business world. In our political system, that can't be done today. And for some reason, people want to not see people who work for the government, making a lot of money. But then you have to say, well, how can those jobs attract the people who are smart enough to solve the problems we have? So, you know, I wrote a memo a year and a half ago called Economic Reality, and I think there's an example. If you paid people more, you would get some better decisions which would contribute to the solution. I don't think you can argue with that, and yet you don't see it happening.
Do you see, how long do you think it's going to take before this becomes a real crisis?
I'm sure you can look it up. You know, I would guess.
Again,
well,
math,
I mean,
right?
Well, it's all just math, and you know, this is really a train that's coming down the track, and it's not debatable whether it's coming. I don't know exactly when it gets here, and of course, for some jurisdictions, it's here already, and we've seen a few municipal bankruptcies, and we've seen Illinois try for reform and be rebuffed because pensions are protected under the Constitution. We've seen other places actually reform the benefit systems. So there's not a date when the problem arrives. It's going to be arriving more and more over the next, I would imagine, 20 years or maybe less. But you know, this is going to be a huge problem. When you're talking about $2 trillion of underfundedness, that's equivalent to 10% of our national debt. And, you know, anybody putting in that kind of money sounds like a pipe dream. And if anybody did, where would it come from? And would the federal government really take on the job of bailing out systems that have been profligate to the detriment of the systems that have been prudent? So,
a very European question.
Well, certainly, well, no solution that looks easy.